Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'd like to move quickly through the call, provide you with the bottom line information. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the eventual revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the other pre-valued currencies. We'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation that exists today in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We're not advocating either the purchase or the sale of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And the most relevant piece of information from our point of view is the potential for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Again, we have a spread on that. Theoretically, the dinar could revalue in the next 30 to 60 days. However, it is still our considered belief that January of 2020 seems to be the most logical date for the reinstitution of the dinar, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail here. The Parliament of Iraq is scheduled to begin their next session on September 3rd, which is approximately 30 days from now. The stated objectives from the President of the House in Iraq is first, that they intend to fundamentally change both the fiscal and monetary policies of Iraq. Fiscal policies, of course, having to do with expenditures relative to the budget, and monetary policies having to do with essentially the reform of their currency. Second, they want to enact and implement both the financial management law and the law of financial administration. The financial management law is designed primarily to oversee the CBI, the Central Bank of Iraq's operations, and the law of financial administration is to oversee the process for the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, this involves ending the auctions, the process of the deletion of the zeros, and the final release of the lower denominations. Now, the reason we believe that the reinstitution will not occur until January is essentially for two reasons. First, the Sadrist coalition in the parliament, which is the largest coalition, which is the coalition that has really been pushing for the cleanup of all the corruption, and the coalition which basically is driving the bus at this point, wants to make sure that the proxy officials in the CBI, the Central Bank of Iraq, inclusive of the director al-Awlaki, are removed, and that they be replaced with permanent officials that are approved by the Sadrists. And that should take some time. And second, the Parliament has recently organized a committee that's going to investigate the corruption in the CBI over the last decade. The two largest areas of concern are, first, the corruption with regard to the auctions, and second, they want an explanation as to why so much of the currency, the newly issued currency, had been damaged. Was it a good faith accident? Was it gross negligence? Or was there some nefarious effort to manipulate the money supply? So because of these two issues, it seems to me, once again, that January would be the most logical date for reinstitution. The reinstitution of currencies for the last 100 years have either occurred in January or in September, which is when most countries begin their fiscal year. But there is an advantage to January. Those of us that have had currencies for some period of time know the next few months in relative terms is a small amount of time. This would allow us, of course, to get through the end of the year and the holiday season But the advantage of a reinstitution and then a revaluation in January means that we would not have to pay taxes on the gain from this exchange until April 15th of 2020. Those 3 months allow us to compel the IRS via private letter ruling to disclose to us exactly what the tax implications are. And that 90-day window also allows us to hold the currency if it should come out at a low float and not be forced to exchange it prematurely at a low rate in order to pay a hypothetical tax. So again, we're looking at January 2020. The way I look at it is this gives me a few additional months to purchase some additional currency, to get my affairs in order if there's anything that needs to be done prior to the revaluation of these currencies. And for those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order or who may not understand what that involves, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that you will need and that you'll want to discuss after the revaluation of these currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts and the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Now, there are a number of entities that you can establish that presumably provide asset protection, but most of them do not provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. For example, you could establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation. Now, such entities are business entities. They do provide some asset protection in that they separate business interest from personal interest, but remember, possession of these currencies is not a business interest. In addition, courts have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation, in terms of its majority stock, is owned either by one individual or a closely held group like a family, that LLC or sub-S corporation can be pierced for civil litigation. So that makes the LLC and the sub-S inappropriate for the purposes intended. Then there are something referred to as revocable trusts. Now, revocable trusts are designed primarily to exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some cases can help to reduce the federal estate tax exposure. But revocable trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they would be inappropriate for your needs. Then there are single irrevocable trusts. Now, irrevocable trusts do provide privacy and asset protection. But if you have one single trust versus a package, that means that all of your assets are assigned to that one trust or that one legal entity. That also means that if any asset within that trust is involved in civil litigation, that will necessarily drag all of the assets in that trust into civil litigation. So that is going to be an inappropriate vehicle. The best protection can only be provided with a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to review with you the reasons why that trust package needs to be established pre-RV and why that trust package will provide bulletproof asset protection post-RV. By establishing this trust package pre-RV and assigning your currencies to that package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity because assets held within this trust package are legally sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit is going to be time-consuming. It's going to be extremely frustrating, especially if it comes at the time when you're involved in the exchange of your currencies. And such an audit will most likely cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an audit if this revaluation and the taxable event occurs within the trust. But second, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. Third, this trust has established a special gift subtrust. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, but in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the lump sum in USD after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through our trust package. One of the sub-trusts within our package is an exclusive gift subtrust. By gifting through this gift subtrust, the USD of these individuals will be protected along with yours. The language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift these individuals the exact US dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this subtrust as part of the package, you will have complete control of those funds, which you can then manage, invest, and distribute to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The 4th reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, not only is this scenario unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of your inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust package is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it works. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer the currencies to your trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will replace or repair your car, making you whole. And this is very important. All of your other assets are safely protected in other subtrusts. Now, why are those assets protected? They're protected because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal persons or entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, The only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you. I'll just make mention of one benefit here. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your sub-trusts. Many of our clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those entities. Our tax specialist will be there to assist you with tax issues. Our offshore specialist will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxation on the reinvestment from the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. In addition, we'll have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provision, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets as well. Third, we know the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets to avoid such devaluation. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned pre-RV currencies prior to the revaluation, and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift sub-trust if you intend on gifting currencies to family and friends and wish to control those funds post-RV, which sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and then 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But a few years back, when we decided to work with Dinarians and create a special trust package for them, we knew that price tag would be simply unaffordable for many. So by simplifying and back-end loading that trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anybody that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust package in place prior to the revaluation should be able to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would actually be less than the $100 a month you would pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons that I've stated here. Now we're going to go to the Q&A in just a minute. Before we do, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. And for those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us and getting our initial package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have actually been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, substantial investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now, in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now, again, I'd like to thank you for listening to the call. We're about to go to the Q&A. If the things we've discussed here are of interest, I seriously think you should consider getting our initial package. You're under absolutely no obligation by doing so, although the package does include everything you need should you decide to proceed with the establishment of your asset protection trust. You can review the package. It has a lot of information in there about the revaluation, about Trusts Unlimited. You can review that package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions, and there will be no consultation fee. So you might want to have a pencil and paper handy, because when I open the Q&A, I will be giving you our contact information. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. For obvious reasons, we take no service calls. The Q&A is designed for individuals that have questions about Trusts Unlimited. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have any service issues that need to be resolved. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, trustsunlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that emails go out very periodically pre-RV. But after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, I'm sure emails will go out on a fairly regular basis. So let's go to the Q&A. We have a caller here. The number is 405, area code 405. Go ahead.
Jim, this is Tom in Oklahoma. Are you
yes, sir,
hearing
Tom.
Me all right?
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing really good, to be honest. I was kind of sad to hear that you weren't the speaker there for a week or two. But I'm glad you're doing better.
Thanks very much. I'm back on the job and good to go.
A question I had, and I don't know how it relates to all this or not. I do have the trust, but I was curious as to whether or not the IRAs that I have could be put into it, or is there a way to do that?
You could put an IRA into the trust or a retirement plan, but for technical tax reasons, we suggest that you leave retirement programs out of the trust. Now, that is specifically one of the issues that our tax specialists will be addressing at our post-RV seminar. At present, and we have thousands of trusts, to our knowledge, nobody has placed a retirement plan in trust. We do not recommend it. There are too many conflicting limitations with regard to not only the expenditures when you retire, but also the attribution when it goes to heirs when a person passes away, that make it a little too complicated to place it in the trust. So again, we recommend that your IRA and other retirement plans stay outside of the trust.
Okay. I was wondering about a Roth IRA and establishing it, as I haven't had one,
yes,
but I keep hearing good things about it. And but I've also heard that you can't access it for several years after doing that.
Well, its access is pretty much the same. You cannot access an IRA or retirement program like that, the private program, till you're 59 and a half years old. If you have not accessed, right, and if you have not accessed it by the age of 70 and a half, the IRS will automatically start drawing down the funds to you. And the purpose for that is very simple. You receive tax deductions and tax-deferred growth, but it was designed to provide retirement income for you. It was not designed to circumvent the federal estate tax and transfer that to heirs. It's for you to extinguish during your lifetime. This is another reason why you probably ought to exclude it from the trust.
Okay. Well, that's about the only thing that I had, other than the fact that I've heard you mention several times that there were things that you were thinking of doing, and I was wondering if you might post that somewhere or another or something so we could look and see if there's some things that we've been overlooking. I know that you can't recommend it other than the fact that this is what I would do and not what you should do.
Well, I'll give you an example in my case. Prior to my involvement with purchasing currencies, and certainly working with Trusts Unlimited, I had my own irrevocable trust, and I have assets in that trust. But I established this trust package, and I've assigned all my currencies, and I have a substantial amount of currency to this trust. After the revaluation, and after I've negotiated my exchange and placed all of my USD in my master trust, the assets that I currently have, all my net worth that's in another trust, I will either sell, give away, or transfer to the sub-trusts in this package. So there are a lot of things that all of us are going to be cleaning up. When people tell me they're thinking about placing assets in the sub-trusts, I say do not do that, because that will complicate the process of the exchange. The bank's going to want to know if you funded any sub-trusts. Second, after the revaluation, people will reassess the assets that they hold, and they may decide, for example, to sell or give away much of what they have. So it would be a waste of time to try to place that in this trust package. You know, this trust package to me is a clean start. And again, after the revaluation, I will fund the trust by putting my exchanged USD in a trust bank account, and then I will either purchase assets to place in the trust sub-trusts, or some of the assets which I currently hold, I will transfer to this trust package.
I appreciate that, and I think that kind of has answered everything. And
well, yes,
you
sir.
Continue with your good health there, I hope.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate your concern, and I wish you the same, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. Good afternoon. Glad to hear your voice.
Yes, sir. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
All righty. So just want to let you know I took a poll, and the poll says we're not giving you a pink slip, so don't plan on going nowhere.
Yeah, well, I my performance contract won't let them kick me to the curb without cause.
All right, well, I'm with it. I'm with it. Good to hear you, man. So, to the previous caller, my question is, wouldn't a trust provide for the beneficiary's needs if he's not working?
This particular trust would provide for the needs of the primary beneficiary if he or she was not working. It provides nothing to...
Wouldn't that be the person that would be retiring? Because that would be the primary beneficiary?
Well, whether you're working or retired, if you're of sound mind and body, you still make determinations about how the assets within the trust will be managed. The only time the trustee would become a direct factor is if for some reason you were ruled incompetent. Now, that is why one of the subjects that will be dealt with at our post-RV seminar is statutory things like wills, powers of attorney, medical directives, and all of that. There are other documentations that can accompany this trust, but because they're regulated statutorily, you're going to have to go to local attorneys in your state. We'll provide the basic information you need, but once again, you're going to need to go to the people that are licensed in each individual state to get those in place. In addition, people that do have wills, powers of attorneys, and medical directives in place, in some situations, they may technically contradict what you've got in your trust. So after the revaluation, I'm sure people are going to get much more finite in terms of what's in the trust and who gets what. And again, the other documentation, the wills, the powers of attorney, and the medical directives will probably need to be redrawn so that everything is, complementing one another.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. All righty. Moving on to my last portion, I'm going to just give you the three things or the three items that I have. Now, today we have the stocks that dropped, and I'm told they're going back up again. I think it had lost over 300 points. And someone had mentioned that it was due to China's devaluing their currency again. a week or two ago, Iraq had made an announcement about the cards that they had issued out to Iraqis that were usable worldwide with a new rate. And thirdly, Iraq having to wait till January of 2020 before the RV. How would any, and if all of that would make any sense for them waiting for January if they've already got cards out that have the new rate and are able to be used by the holders of the Iraqis, that is, and then the government's in place? It didn't say they had to get rid of their corruption before they cut it loose, but if you will.
All right, let's take them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
China is desperate because China has to deal with Trump. And unlike previous presidents, this guy is not getting along to go along. He's not putting up with their abuses, with their stealing intellectual property, with their artificially devaluing their currency, and with the annual trade deficit that we're running. 40% of China's goods are sold to the United States, so we own them. What they're trying to do is ensure that Trump is not reelected by these stunts, whether they target farmers by putting tariffs on soybeans and other products, or whether they continue to try to devalue their currency. Now, when Trump declared China to be a currency manipulator, the reason that has teeth is because China recently became one of the Chinese yen, renminbi, has become one of the currencies in the IMF basket. And they are required to play basically by the rules. You cannot artificially devalue your currency. Another advantage to Basel III compliance is that all currencies will know, in other words, the governments, the central banks and governments of the countries are not going to be able to manipulate their currency any longer, because the value of their currency is going to be based pursuant to Basel III compliance, the known natural resources in their country and their ability to bring those resources to market within 5 years. So Trump's exactly doing the right thing. He's got them by the throat, and he's just letting them know, I'm just going to keep adding more tariffs. He's holding a winning hand, so if they up the ante, he just doubles it on them. The problem is, unfortunately, for domestic political purposes, Democrats are trying to undercut that. There's going to be short-term pain to do this, of course, but this is the right play. The Chinese have been playing the long game all along. We've been playing the short game, and we finally have someone in there that said enough is enough. So that's what's going on with China. They're not going to prevail so long as Trump's president of the United States. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if you love or hate the guy. That's a fact. That's a fact. With regard to the cards, I've heard this over and over again for years. Until someone that I know and trust shows me the card and shows me what they've done with it, I don't believe it for a second. It would undercut the nation. How could they have an international rate via a card that doesn't exist in country? It doesn't work that way. You can't put the cart before the horse. And with regard to the reinstatement in 2020, the problem still remains corruption at the CBI, and the individuals that are officials, that are proxy holders at the CBI, have to be replaced. So until that happens, I do not think we'll see a reinstitution. We got plenty of time for that to happen. I do not see them going past January 2020 for the reinstitution, but they got more than enough time to clean up the mess before then.
Okay. All right. That gives me more work to do. All right. Thanks, Jim. Glad you're back, and thanks for taking my call.
Sure. You take care. Bye-bye.
All right. You too, buddy. Bye.
Well, Les was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. If the things that you've heard today are compelling, I strongly suggest that you contact us and get our initial package. Once again, you're under absolutely no obligation by doing so, even though everything you need to proceed is included in the package. You can review the information, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call, of course, is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So thanks again for listening and have a great week. Bye-bye.